my lovelies, and welcome back. Today I'm going to tell you about my top 7 items that I use when I'm sewing. Please excuse the mess behind me. I am currently in my new craft room and in the process of setting things up. So I'm at that stage where it gets really messy before it gets really tidy. So please excuse the mess behind me. It's been a process and we're only at probably about day 4, I think. But I wanted to make these videos for you before I go on holidays. Let's jump straight into it. Okay, my first recommendation, you may sit there and go, oh, well, that's obvious, Juliet, but sometimes it's not as obvious as you think. The first thing I recommend is investing in a really good pair of scissors. Now, this is not the first pair of scissors that I purchased when I started sewing many years ago. Now, I started sewing and I purchased the scissors that I could afford at the time. So my advice is purchase the best pair of scissors that you can afford because they last a really long time. The other thing is they cut a lot better than the cheaper ones out there. I know a lot of people will say to you, oh, just get this brand, it's the cheapest. To be quite honest, if you invest in a good pair of scissors, it will last you a long time and you'll get beautiful cuts from it, okay? This one I love also, particularly because it's got a nice big handle, okay? So if you're doing a lot of cutting, you do get sore fingers, right? If you're me, you do get sore fingers. So this one's lovely. It's got a lot of space for my hands, but it's also not one of those metal ones. I did get one of those and I couldn't stand it because it really hurt my fingers. Now, I am pretty sure that you can get this on Amazon, so I will link it below. And just a reminder that everything that I talk about, I will try and link below as best that I can. But I'm pretty sure that you can get these on Amazon. I bought these from my local craft store at Spotlight, but you can get them on Amazon also. Number 2. Now, I have tried various unpickers over the years. The one with the little plastic ends, I've had the plastic ends fly off the unpicker, okay? But the brand that I recommend is called Clover. It's a beautiful little, really light unpicker, but it's got a little wooden end. Now, the actual blade on this unpicker is so beautiful. It came, when I purchased mine, I think it came with a couple. I haven't actually even gotten through the first one. The blade is that lovely and sharp. Now, previously with the plastic, there was a plastic one that came with my machine. It wasn't that great. I've had other plastic ones with that little red little ball on the end comes off, or the actual handle flies off. So this is another one where, to be honest, lovelies, this is not expensive, but it's more expensive than those cheap plastic ones that you can get. But this is what I recommend, and I wouldn't use any other unpicker once I found these. I had a friend recommend them to me actually, because I said to her, I'm really sick of my unpickers just breaking and not being sharp. And she said, oh my gosh, you need to use Clover. So this is what I recommend. Okay, lovelies. Number 3 is a self-healing mat and a rotary cutter. Now, I have grabbed my smallest self-healing mat because my big one is under all my material that I'm resorting at the moment. Now, this is a birch. I do love to use birch products. I think they're really good sewing products. This video is not sponsored by Birch. I'm just a Birch girl. I like to use them. However, it doesn't matter if you've got a different brand and you prefer a different brand. That's fine. This one is 16 inches by 22 inches. Now, if you're like me and you work in centimeters, this one's 45 centimeters by 60 centimeters. Now, that's the long end on it, okay? Now, the beauty of these is you can put them down on your dining room table, on your floor if you've got a good back and you can get on the floor. I cannot do that anymore. Or on an island bench or on your cutting table. And then that way you can use your scissors or a rotary cutter, okay? And it will not damage your surface. Now, the reason I recommend a rotary cutter is if you're like me and you do a lot of cutting and you do get sore fingers. Now, I do get sore fingers, particularly now. I've been very unwell for the last couple of years and I'm starting to get better, but I've noticed my fingers are a lot sorer than they used to be. So I use a rotary cutter if I'm doing a lot of cutting, okay? And they're brilliant because You've got a blade and you can just run it along. Now, the beauty of a rotary cutter is you're just putting pressure on and you're cutting the material without having to do that scissor action, okay? Obviously, you still need scissors for, you know, those small areas, but if you're doing a lot of straight cutting, if you're a quilter or something like that, rotary cutters are great. Now, the benefit of these mats is they're self-healing mats, okay? So you can use a rotary cutter on these mats and it's 100% fine. So this is another tool that I use quite regularly, particularly when I'm cutting out patterns with long edges. I will always use my self-healing mat when I'm cutting out patterns, but I will use my rotary cutter to do the long edges because it's just so much easier and a lot quicker, especially if you're doing quilts. So that's my next recommendation. Okay, lovelies, number 4 is a pressing mat. Now this is just, I believe it's just, I don't think it's 100% wool, but it's called a wool pressing mat. Now I put this down on desktop surfaces so that I can basically create a little mini ironing board. Now, if you've been watching my channel for a little while, you know I had a very small craft space before. So I do not have room for an ironing board or any of those mini ironing boards. So what I purchased is this pressing mat basically, and it is a dream. So basically you can just sit it on your surface, whether that be a desk, a bench, table, set your iron up and you've got like a mini pressing station in your room and you don't have to go to where your ironing board is, which is really good when you need to press in between sewing seams, okay? So all those steps that you don't want to miss out so that your sewing looks more professional, this is really good to have because you can have it set up in your room, sew your seam, turn around and press it and then keep going. So it is a bit of a time saver. I mean, my ironing board is down the other end of the house and I don't like to have the iron set up when I'm not in the room. So I like to have this pressing mat on hand so that I can just bring my iron in here, I can watch it and I can press it and I don't have to walk down the other end of the house. I know that sounds bad, but I like to have the iron with me. I don't like to leave it in another room where I'm not watching it, particularly because I have kids. So this is my next recommendation. Okay, number 5, lovelies, a chalk pen. Now there's a lot of things out there like Taylor's chalk or those washable pens. They're all great, and if you like them, that's terrific. I love you can see how often I've used this one. I love just your little dressmaker's chalk pen because all you need to do is you just sharpen it like a pencil and then you can mark those spots where you need to put darts or if you've got a pattern where you need to mark your actual sewing seam. You know, this is great, and I tend to prefer the colors like blue because I see it more than you know those white ones? I can't see that. So I like to use these ones. But you know, it is really something simple, and everyone I'm sure will have their preference, but my preference is the chalk because I can see it much better. I don't like to use those washable pens because I do find that they do dry out, and I'm not a fan of using them on my material. I'm always a bit wary, well, what happens if, you know, it doesn't wash out and that sort of thing. So I prefer to use the chalk, and I find it's the easiest to see, and you can also, if you want to create a really nice point on it, then you can create a really nice tip on it. So it's personal preference, but this is my 5th recommendation. Okay, now this item I probably had the longest. This is some metal snips. Now this is a Birch brand, and I can see if I can link that below. If not, I'll link the closest one to it. And basically, they're like little embroidery scissors, but I use them just for snipping off the ends of the material. Obviously, my machine has a little cutter on the side, which I use, but then I like to sort of snip it a little bit closer. And once I'm finished and I want to snip right down towards the knot, then I use these little snips. They're great. I do also use them with other crafts. So I do like to do cross stitch as well. So I use that for cross stitch, but they're nice and tiny, very thin, and I've never had them go blunt. They're absolutely beautiful. They weren't expensive, but once again, They were brilliant, and I highly recommend that because they're really useful. It does have a little hole there, so if you wanted to, if you had something around your neck where you kept, so I know a lot of ladies like to keep scissors around their neck when they're sewing or when they're crafting, you could hang it on something and just bring it forward, snip, and then, you know, so you don't lose it. So there is that option there as well, but they're great lovelies. They're super light, and yeah, I love them to bits, so highly recommend that one. Okay, last but not least is my binding set. So I bought this binding set from a craft store, but I know you can get them on Amazon, so I'll link it below. Now, it comes with your binding foot and various sizes to make your own binding. So you don't need to buy binding, and the beauty of this is you can make it in the colour that you want. You can make it to match the dress that you, I shouldn't say the dress, to match the outfit that you're making, so that the binding matches exactly like it does when you buy your clothes in the store. This is brilliant. It also comes with an awl, which I love as well. Now, an awl is fabulous for using when, like if you're drafting patterns, or if you need to mark where that dart needs to go, you can use the awl just to push through that little circle on that pattern, so that you can then use your chalk to mark your pattern, or if you want to use a tailor's tack, you can use a tailor's tack. But an awl comes in really handy, and it was a little bonus. Also really nice for if you want to turn out a corner as well. But that was a bonus that came with my binding set, and they're great. And so they've got a little, let me just show you so you can see what they look like. Okay, so you're looking at, that's the size of your binding at the end. When it comes out, it feeds through the top, and then you pull it away from your iron so that you don't burn your finger, okay? No more burning fingers, and no more, you know, having to guess. These are great, and they come in 4 different sizes. So you've got your really small or your really big, and I'll just show you the varying size between your really small and your really big. So that one's quite small. That's really small. You look at my finger there. That's a lovely small binding. And then here, compared to my finger, nice big binding. And then the 2 sizes in between. So that is my final recommendation. They're my top 7 recommendations for sewing for your craft room for 2026. I hope that you have enjoyed this video today. If you've liked hanging out with me, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss my craft room reveal when I finally set everything up. Give this video a big thumbs up. It really helps me, as I am a small channel, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Bye.